Hi everyone, my name is Christopher Engman. I'm the author of the Megadeals book. Today we're going to cover the Megadeals discipline for sustainability companies. I've really looked forward to this day for many weeks, and I hope you will enjoy it. So a few words about me. I won the Chief Commercial Officer of the Year in 2018. I was driving sales and marketing at Engman, where we succeeded to grow 3,000% in 2 years. I'm an active investor in 15 companies, of which 8 is a lead investor. And it's a blend of green tech and IT scale-ups. I founded a few companies. I've got 4 kids. I've lived in a few countries. I have a beard, etc. I'll soon introduce you to Ingmar, who will speak with me today as well. But first, a few things that we think are important. We think that there's a broad consensus in the world around that there is an urgent climate crisis, not just a climate crisis, but an urgent one. And what we've seen is that most media companies in particular are talking about the technical innovations and the financing. But both we at Megadeals and Ingmar and the guys at We Don't Have Time, we have identified that the big gap is around commercial scaling. Actually, there is plenty of cash for green tech. It's almost ridiculous, I would say, because since I'm also an active investor, especially when green tech companies are proven, they are potentially overfunded sometimes. But we still see, we're doing a report right now, together with We Don't Have Time, where we look at green tech innovations, and a lot of them actually fail. And I see similarities between the green tech space and where IT was in the 90s. So a lot of IT companies failed because they were very tech driven and they lacked the commercial scaling capabilities. And together with We Don't Have Time, we've also concluded that we see enough technical innovation already proven that will solve the situation for the world, both in terms of CO2 and in terms of pollution. So the point is scaling, and that's what we're going to cover today. And Ingmar will, before I go into what Megadeals, what we can do with the Megadeals discipline, Ingmar will share with you a few words about We Don't Have Time, which I find highly engaging. And for whatever reason, for all reasons in the world, you should be a member of the We Don't Have Time social media network. So you go to wedon'thavetime.org, become a member even during this webinar. Welcome, Ingmar.
Thank you, Christopher. My name is Ingmar Rentzhog, and I'm the founder and CEO of We Don't Have Time. We are the world's largest social network for climate action. And the reason why I changed my career, my previous career was working as an entrepreneur in the finance industry, but 4 years ago I changed career and started to dedicate my time and life to fight the climate crisis. The reason for that, you'll see here in this picture, it's actually my children. When they grew up, when my oldest daughter turns 18 years old and can vote in our election and decide for herself about their future, it is too late to act on the climate crisis. It is us that have the power today that can do something about it, and we must do that. And what I see is so much solutions out there, but we need to scale them and we need to implement them at a much faster rate. So that is what We Don't Have Time is all about. And what we believe in, our core values at We Don't Have Time, is that in order to solve the climate crisis, we need to work together. Individuals, businesses, organizations, and governments, everyone needs to cooperate. And we need to start focusing on the solutions. Instead of telling people what not to do, we should tell them what to do instead, and we should scale those solutions. Because we need to influence so many people to also take action on the climate crisis. So we need to have everyone embrace those solutions. And we need a platform for that. And that is what We Don't Have Time is all about. What we have built is something, it's a combination between a social network, similar to Twitter, with a rating platform similar to TripAdvisor, where where users could give reviews to sustainable companies could give better rating, and not so sustainable companies could get bad rating. And I will now show you a short film about how our social network actually works.
Do you want to act on the climate crisis but don't know how? With our app, you can send climate reviews to organizations and leaders. Our team reaches out to the organization to encourage dialogue. Tap the green Create button and choose type of review. Give climate love to people doing great stuff. Create a climate idea to suggest a solution. Or send a climate warning to those who hurt the planet. To increase your impact, you can share the review, because when enough people agree with you, organizations and leaders will change. Many even want your opinion, because we have to work together. Create your climate review now.
Our network is free for everyone to use, and today we have invited 40,000 members that are really active in the field.
You must join during this session.
And now you're welcome. So go to the WeDon'tHaveTime.org and sign up. But the interesting thing is that you don't need to be millions of people to change the world. It's enough if you're a couple of thousand that are truly dedicated to the task. Because what our members are doing is that they are sharing the content on the platform. We have built an open, transparent platform. And already today, we reach over 25 million people on social media every month. And those we have invited are the people that are in the forefront of the climate movement. It's everything from business people working with large multinational corporations like IKEA, to people working within government, to activists on the street in over 140 countries. They all came together, give reviews to companies and leaders, and help them to be better. And what is great about this is that if you have this reach on social media, traditional media is also giving you a lot of attention. So every week we are in somewhere in the world interviewed in media in all kinds of languages. And that is a great way to get out of the bubble, because we can't just scale within the community that are already awakened about the climate crisis. We need also to reach everyone else. And traditional media plays a huge important role here. And we are using them to get out and reach many, many more people. Our goal is to scale. We are in a phase where we have built this platform. It works. We have clients. We have partners like Megadeals. We have the users using it. We have activity on the platform. And what we must do now is to scale it. And therefore, we have partnered up with Megadeals. They are helping us scale it. And now you can also help us scale it by joining the platform and be active. Our goal is to be a unicorn for the climate. We must speed up the transition and succeed in half the world's emission in under 10 years. And we can do it, but the only way forward is to scale the solutions and share them. So welcome. And now Christopher is going to talk a little bit more about how to scale things.
Great. And I think there is one piece that is important with We Don't Have Time that I see as a value that you actually don't mention, which is and I know most of your attendees today are coming from sustainability companies. So we've just been a member for 2 months, and we are already getting a lot of leads, because you find on the platform a lot of sustainability companies, but you also find on the corporate side a lot of people that are engaged in working against climate change, and they are working as your ambassadors inside these accounts. So we get a lot of leads already now, which is as for most of these listeners, I think very relevant.
Yes, I mean,
so it's a business platform and since it's not as crowded as LinkedIn, and it's very targeted to a few topics, it's very relevant.
It's a platform to work together,
yeah.
And we need to work together, every one of us.
Exactly.
So we have actually a lot of cases where we have helped our members to connect to other members and do things on a global scale.
Exactly.
If you have a local business, you need to share that to the world so that everyone can implement your solution locally on other places. And it's a lot of you can do a lot of interesting business of connect with other like-minded people that want to change the world.
Yeah, and there's another thing that we haven't mentioned. So we're doing a report together. We will start with the Nordics, but then it will be international, where we're looking at the 50 most scalable companies in the sustainability fields in the Nordics. So they need to have proven cases. They're already on a scaling journey, or they're about to embark on a scaling journey. So we're doing that report, and we will launch it end of February.
Yes.
In an event together. We will then participate with the report on the larger We Don't Have Time event in April. And then we will move into doing the same study on a global basis, because our big belief, again, is that there is enough technology out there. It just needs to scale. So we're not ending up with a lot of failures like IT did in the 90s.
Exactly.
Great. So switching to back to, so we're using two different formats here. Again, the commercial scaling, let's go back to that topic. Why? So we have two reasons for going after sustainability companies. First one is that we see the big gap on the commercial scaling side, which we can fill. And that's our easiest way to contribute to the world. No one in the Megadeals team will innovate a new technology for sustainability. We're not those profiles, we're commercial profiles. But we can take all the experiences and all the research we've done on the largest deals in the world and move them into sustainability companies. We already have quite a few cases. But one thing, there are three characteristics where the Megadeals discipline apply, which are totally relevant for the way sustainability companies are selling. First of all, when you're not just selling to one client, you're selling into an ecosystem. You need to convince politicians, environmental approvals, you need to get local funding in certain cases, or you're selling into cross-functional teams. You're not selling into one function in the client organization, you're selling to a few functions. That's number one. Number two is that as soon as a client becomes a matrix or a cube organization as opposed to a pyramid, so small companies are typically pyramids, and then they go bigger and become matrices, and then they become cubes. And then they have even more dimensions than that. And as soon you're selling into a matrix or cube organization, the game changes. And the third characteristic is as soon as you're selling as a team, it's not just a salesperson or a business leader that is doing the sales alone. You need to pull in technical experts, finance experts, implementation experts, and also partner up with companies that are doing the delivery with you. Then the Megadeals discipline totally applies. So many of the sustainability cases we have, which is actually the only place, well, there are some others, but most of our clients are actually not ticking all the boxes. They're still working with us. But in the sustainability cases, we tick all the boxes because it includes contracting, financing, a few aspects that are not as common in normal B2B. Okay. So this is our bigger team. So we're now 9 full-time employees. We have an extended team of very interesting people with different specializations that we pull in now and then. So this is my only sales slide. So what we typically do, we have a lot of activities like this webinar, a few podcasts, we have posts on LinkedIn, videos, etc. Those are creating a lot of interest. A lot of companies are reaching out to us saying, we want to meet, we want to talk about the Megadeals discipline, how we can use it, etc. But instead of immediately having a meeting, so if any one of you haven't got that video, ask us for the executive summary. We'll send you a private link to the executive summary and with a question like, when you've watched this and when your executive team has watched this video, if you feel this is how we want to work, then we have a meeting. And typically we start with a 4-half-day workshop where we work on one existing client and one client that you want to win. And we look at how would you use the Megadeals discipline to grow and win these 2 accounts. And then some clients move into actually us working with them on a more long-term basis, but we don't have to go deep into that at the moment. When we did the Megadeals research, we thought that we would depict the largest deals in the world. We did that, but a big realization was that when we moved down one level, looking at kind of medium complex and medium tickets, there was no discipline for marketing, sales, and social selling, etc. combined. So you often find a marketing methodology, a sales methodology, a social selling guide, etc. And it's very hard for most organizations to get that to work internally. It becomes more like you pick all the nuggets here and there. You never get it to really scale. So we have a lot of clients that are not doing the super duper ultra mega deals. They're more doing medium-sized deals. So one big thing that has changed in the last 10 years is how deals are done. It started where the media companies were disrupted by Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Netflix, YouTube, and they're now really suffering, like the normal newspapers of the world. Then the retail industry was hit, where you now see the retail death, and the e-commerce companies are flourishing. Then transactional B2B deals were hit, where you moved from cold calling and regular meetings into content search, form fills, and online demos. And now politics has been hit. You've seen Obama and more lately Trump, not saying he did a perfect job, but they knew how to play the political game using digital media and social media. And Anna Kinberg Batra, that used to be a top politician in Sweden, she has talked to us about what she misunderstood or misjudged when she was going for prime minister in Sweden. So she underestimated the importance of digital media and social media. She was stuck a bit with the TV debates and the press releases and the debate articles, whereas the full game was already then in the digital media space. And the same thing has happened in the larger deals, where it's very, very media driven, as opposed to gray-haired men like myself going out, shaking hands, having dinners. I'm just being a bit ironic there. But now it's very dominated by, I mean, the best companies in the world, they totally do this already. So they're doing what Obama did around elections, but they do it for deals. And we're part of that now and then. I'll go through a few mistakes that we see sustainability companies are doing. We've seen this in other industries earlier. They're now mature. So one thing I see again and again is that you try to prove the case with too many industries and too many use cases at once, as opposed to focusing more. The same thing happens well, the same thing. We also see that product companies are thinking, oh, we have a great product, let's go to distributors. And that happens way too early. I'm sure that many of you listening to this do have distributors around the world, but actually going back to the changes now, you have so many media vehicles that you don't need the middleman. You can go directly. But the second thing is that nor us, nor the Crossing the Chasm team, they also go with a lot of scale-ups all the time. We see the same thing. You cannot succeed with an indirect model in the beginning. You can go for indirect sales later, but you need to prove the case many times with a direct sale model. And whatever anyone thinks on this call, well, for us it's different. No, you will waste money. There's a lot of money wasted on A and B here. But this shouldn't be mixed up. So you should have partners, but you should have this delivery partners. So you should work with other companies to ensure the delivery, not the sales. They won't sell for you. And then some of you say, well, I have an exception. There are exceptions, but overall, it's a waste of time in the scale-up phase of a company. And definitely if you're pre-scale-up, so you're a startup, don't even spend a minute on sales partners. So one of the things I did, so when the Megadeals discipline was really young, I had the chance to run sales and marketing at Klymon, which is doing electricity from hot water, so small power plants. And there were 40 resellers around the world signed up. And one of the things I said is, okay, I will invest in this company. I will take the sales and marketing leadership role. I will implement the Megadeals discipline. But this has a few consequences. We will go direct. We will limit the scope to way fewer industries and countries. And I will fire all the 40 resellers. And of course, the founder team were a bit hesitant to this, but we did that and we managed to grow from $3 to $90 million in 2 years. It was not just thanks to that refocus, but that was one key element, even though it's tempting to go with these partners and distributors. So, and some challenges that most scale-ups are struggling with on the B2B side, go through them. First of all, a lot of companies are having a dependency on 1 to 2 rainmakers. So 1 or 2 people that are absolutely pivotal for closing the deals. We see this again and again and again. You actually have the same dependency in some of the largest companies in the world. It's more hidden though. But in the companies in the range from 20 to 200 employees, you typically have 1, 2, and I'm sure that some of you are thinking now, oh, it's Steven or it's Laura or it's, you do have rainmakers, and they're not necessarily on the sales side. It's quite often a founder which really understands the domain, maybe one salesperson, maybe one from the product side. There are a few people that are bottlenecks in your company growth. The second issue that we see is that there is a non-homogeneous messaging. So the messaging platform is covering from not knowing who you are to actually buying from you is not holding together. So it's typically not created at all, or it's created in silos. So one team is saying A, another team is saying B, delivery comes in and say, yeah, sales and marketing talk a lot, this is how it really is. That is destroying trust. So you need to create a messaging that is synchronized across the functions and across the full funnel. And we see a lot of marketing teams that are way too focused on lead generation. We're actually working on figuring out how to create a video. It will probably be a struggle where we will have a fortress, and inside the fortress you have the client organization. Outside the fortress you have your own organization, and you're approaching them, wanting to sell to them. You crack a small hole in the biggest portal and you let one warrior in. What will happen? That is a lead. That single salesperson or warrior will be completely smashed. When you go into a matrix or a cube organization, you will be destroyed. So marketing needs to support, and the rest of the organization needs to sell as one team all the way, not just generating the lead and then letting go. That is not the best practice. A fourth point is that there is a lack of a systematic approach on how to repetitively do large deals. And we see a lot of companies that are very old school in the way they sell. It's way dependent on physical touch points. So and actually the good news is that the sales teams are quite easy to upgrade. Marketing typically needs a bigger, completely control out delete. But on one of the things we talk about is how can we make leaders and salespeople more media? And the sixth point is that companies, especially in younger industries like the various sustainability sectors, talking too much about themselves, too much about benefit features and their products. I'll come back to this. So if we would have longer time, we'll go through one of each of you. How many of these are you experiencing, and what is the consequence? But let's move on. So when it comes to larger deals, when you're selling into an ecosystem or into a matrix or a cube organization, and when you're selling as a team, it shifts from traditional sales techniques to orchestration techniques. Megadeals is all about orchestration. How do you pull marketing, sales, finance, etc., product together into one machinery? And I'll cover soon the 5 big insights and how they then influence how you work with your messaging, how you work with your marketing, how you work with your sales, etc. Actually, a lot of time when we develop the messaging with clients, we see that they're targeting the wrong industry. A lot of deals are lost not to competitors, but to various substitutes. Great. So beginning with the end in mind. So what you want to achieve a factory. You want to do larger deals as a factory, so you can repeat it. Most of the things you're selling has this thinking, but some of you are lacking the commercial machinery, which is equally factory style. So in the middle, you want the messaging architecture that is the spine of your marketing and sales. On top of that, you develop content. So in many cases, we do between 20 to 30 video pieces that are covering the full funnel, from attracting the interest to taking away a lot of work from sales and technical experts, etc., along the way. So you're blending the human interactions with content and various martech and media tricks, going back to the Obama game. So you're blending smart messaging with sales tech, martech, and media, and content on top of that is helping the organization to close deals in shorter time with a high win rate, but also for a lower cost, because we do once and never again. So a lot of things, especially downstream, when you come closer to a deal, you're answering similar questions again and again. So can we move those into videos and ask whatever questions they're asking, we can answer them with video content. Strong recommendation. Another way of seeing this is that you have the full funnel in the top. You base everything on the 5 cornerstones that I will cover soon, and on top of that you create great messaging and content, and you run the sales leadership in line with this across the funnel and martech and media. And then you get, as a consequence, and this is a bit we play on the robotization here, so you add a lot of machinery and repetition capability from the marketing side. Right, so going back, what are the 5 cornerstones? These are the 5 big insights we've seen when studying large deals across the world. What are those? First of all, to sell something big, you need to match a client's strategic goals, or what's called a key initiative. So we need to align our business with our target accounts and our target segments' top key initiatives. And if we don't have a fit, we should not waste our time. And especially those of you, and those are the majority today, that are representing sustainability companies, we often find enthusiasts. So let's say we're selling into steel factories, something around heat recovery or whatever. It's very easy to find enthusiasts within each steel organization. But for your initiative to get enough wind, it needs to match a key initiative of that steel company. Otherwise, those enthusiasts will burn up your time, because they will continue to meet you, but they will not get the attention internally because it doesn't match a key initiative. This is the simplest change. If you don't do this, study their annual reports, make sure you're matching a key initiative or 2. And also some companies are greenwashing in their annual reports. So you need to figure out, is this a real key initiative or is it just for the show? So for example, here, one example, at Climb on this was definitely a part of the criteria when we engaged time with the client. We looked at, do we have a match with a key initiative or not? And it needs to be clearly defined. Otherwise, we actually, even if it was a great brand, we neglected them. Well, we said no in a polite way, but we knew we'll spend time here. But the big money are actually allocated, especially in bigger organizations. The big money is sitting in key initiatives. So outside key initiatives, you can find money, but for small pilots. And we have several examples where you've done a brilliant pilot. I mean, both from our own experiences. Bora usually have a great example of this. We have our own experience. We've seen this in our research. You're spending a lot of time and money creating these amazing pilots. You're ticking all the boxes and still it becomes canceled because it doesn't match a top priority of that organization. The second one is to understand the deal-related ecosystem. So both internally in the organization, which functions, which hierarchical levels, which countries, etc., do we need to infiltrate, but also the ecosystem outside of the client organization. Most of the sustainability companies that you represent, you need to convince local politicians sometimes, technical consultants, even some governmental bodies, etc. So there is an ecosystem. We need to understand it entirely, and it's typically way bigger than we think. I'm sure that many of you are doing a lot of missioning. The third one, which is the hardest, how do we take the understanding of the ecosystem, move it into consensus machinery? And here's where marketing comes in. I'll talk about this later today. How do we create consensus at scale? This is not possible to do with human power alone. I mean, Ingmar and I could nerd out completely on the media game here, but this is a short session. But media is absolutely critical when it comes to creating consensus at scale. And the fourth one, we need to find what we call Trojan horses. You definitely need to have your champions. Those are typically the people that openly inside a customer organization are taking your stand. They're promoting you openly, and they're there to do that politically. The Trojan horses are typically more silent. They are further down in the organization most of the time. They want you to succeed. They want their organization to change, but they're not saying it loudly internally. So they give you pivotal information about what's going on, who you should talk to, how you should map, etc. But you need to watch out because they're double agents. Some of them pretend to be on your side, but are actually working for someone else. So you need to have several Trojan horses. And the fifth one, we need to actively talk about the customer risk. This is counterintuitive. Most sales and marketing leaders want to talk about benefits, features, unique selling points, and the value. That's all great. But large deals are very risk mitigation driven. So some of the companies that all the time do Megadeals, they're really systematically working with customer risks. And this is something we've clearly seen in our research. So you need to proactively bring up risk with the client. What is the risk? What are the risks that they take when they embark on a journey with you? And which one of those risks can we mitigate? Which ones do we just need to accept and limit? So this feels counterintuitive, but a lot of time is from the client side is spent on figuring out what is the risk with your category? What is the risk with you as a particular vendor? They spend a lot of time on this. So why don't we just tell them immediately? You will waste less time and they will waste less time. And they will feel way more higher degree of trust in you. Because only mature organizations and mature people are talking about risks proactively. You want to add?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
I think the insight there about the key priority of an organization, that is something I experienced so many times.
Right.
And especially now when I'm working with the climate. But I mean, I will know how, okay, we should target the ones that have this key priority. But I want to change all the else. But what is the methods to change that key priority?
Exactly.
That is the question.
Right. So I think here, the choice here, you have a broader mission here. So you are
say the what?
Yeah, but you are brilliant at making green in various forms become a key initiative.
Yeah.
Most, especially smaller organizations, they need to be more cynical. Yes, they can put a certain, like 10-15% of their time running, promoting an agenda. But most of the time, if they want to succeed and then become more muscular, they need to really be cynical about which companies and organizations are having this secure priority already.
Yeah.
Because it's sadly, you know this already. You're coming from the finance. It's driven by money in the end. Yeah. So the way to save the world is to make the sustainability company scale-ups succeed. And the way to succeed is to direct them into money, because then they can fund the bigger marketing machinery, even they can be more successful in the roles, etc. But yeah.
So what we are doing, creating a platform for climate reviews, where you can see the rating. Many companies have a priority to have a good rating.
Exactly. So I think, again, please sign up for, we don't have time. We don't have time, because you will find both business contacts and you will be part of making your various initiatives part of the green agenda, for sure. Great. So a big insight, this is in line with this political landscape changes, the retail changes, etc. We need to spend at least 50% of our go-to-market money on marketing. And in so many sustainability companies are founded by tech innovators that are coming from machinery, they're coming from older energy spaces, so they still have an old school view on this. So going back to the political space, we need to fast track moving into, okay, now and going forward, it's extremely media driven. So we need to spend at least half of the money on marketing. And we did this with, I'll show this soon, we did this at Kleinman. So we put slightly more money on the marketing side than on the sales side. And we grew really, really fast. And also looking at the top of this picture, there's too much money spent. If it's spent on marketing, it's too spent on leads and too little on ongoing sales cases and existing clients. So here our recommendation is an even split. And companies that are engaging in producing content, they forget about the distribution of it. So if you look at the various political campaigns, you can see that they're pretty good at getting it out there. So that they're actually buying media and getting organic spread, etc. Getting engagement with platforms like We Don't Have Time and LinkedIn, etc. Right, so quickly moving into messaging. So 3 types of messaging. The first type is fundamental messaging. It's moving the client from unaware to wanting to buy. And here any junior salesperson would say, yeah, I have them. We're very close to making a deal with this company. Any senior person would say, well, I know that 70-80% of the time is spent on the deal closing, where you need to answer all the gazillion questions. We call them timeline, deep dive, and objections. Come back to that soon. And so that's the deal closing message, which is taking the client from wanting to buy to actually buying. But to enable that, we need to have orientational messaging, which is amplifying your dialogue within the ecosystem you're selling to. We need to make you the Aston Martin car in the Bond movie. So we need to create topics that are bigger than you. And that is engaging a much larger audience. So we at Kleinman, we sold to Maersk, the largest shipping company in the world. And we managed to have I remember in particular one article we made, which was about shipping companies. It had 147 readers among the Maersk employees. So we created content that really amplified the dialogue within these organizations. So quickly about fundamental messaging is taking you from unaware to wanting to buy, and it includes 4 levels. First of all, you talk about the change drivers, and here a lot of organizations are moving. So we have these problems in the market, and this is why we exist, and this is our solution. So that's not how clients are working. Clients are seeing their own problem. They spend a tremendous amount of time figuring out what are the alternative solutions. So what are the alternative categories to solving this problem? And it's not just your solution. It's many different categories. And then they say, okay, with it. So to take climate, for example, we talk obviously about the Paris Agreement and all that kind of stuff, but then moving into the category choices, we talked about heat power compared to wind power, solar power, hydropower, nuclear power. So that was the category level. What's the definition of each? What are the pros and cons and consequences going down each path? And okay, heat power seems attractive. What are the heat power alternatives? Yeah, there are various types of heat power. And then you even have a level below that. Okay, let's say I want to go with a modular solution, which is targeting low temperatures, which was Climon. What are the attributes or the dimensions I need to look at? So that layer you can't see it here. So it's actually 5 layers. And the way customers are making decisions, they're thinking in a different flow than we sell, which is something we need to figure out. So most of the companies that we work with have something we call category and subcategory confusion. So customers are going, oh, you're such and such solution. And the vendor is going, no. Or, oh, you're such and such solution. No. The problem is that the human brain wants to simplify things. So we have buckets in our brain where as soon as we hear something, we're going to put it in a bucket that we already know. The problem for new solutions is that that bucket is not the bucket you want them to put it in. So the way to solve it is to add category, subcategory, and dimensions before you even mention something about you as a vendor. And you can do this. So the short format we recommend for this is already, it's down to 3 minutes. And if we had a longer session, I can show you a few examples. If some of you want to see that, let's engage afterwards. So once you've moved them down to, okay, now they want to buy from you, then they go into what about integration with these kind of systems? What about the implementation? How does it work, etc.? We call those things deal closing messaging. And here, typically, marketing organizations are not used to helping sales with this. And this is something we strongly recommend. Marketing needs to get engaged with things closer to the deal. We need to have videos talking about how does it work? What are the different risks we need to face, etc. I'll show you some more depth here. So we typically talk about describing the timeline. What happens from wanting to buy to signing? Who does what, etc. What happens from signing to starting the implementation, and how does the implementation work? And what's the ongoing relationship between us and you as a vendor and your partner delivery, not sales partners, delivery partners. What are the objections they're having? Can we answer them? Because I see so many organizations that are sitting 11:30 in the night, cutting and pasting from various documents, answering questions over email, which is breaking the back of a lot of entrepreneurs because it falls down to the founders often or some kind of internal expert. So move them into short videos where we answer all the questions they're having in video format. And someone would say, well, why video? Why not text? Well, a picture is saying more than 1,000 words, and a video is saying more than, I can't remember the number, but it's a big multiplier on the effect of a text. So video is absolutely amazing on getting a message across. And then how do you handle the objections and the deep dives? And you do that in various video formats. And the third messaging type is orientational messaging. This is how we get a larger audience inside the deal ecosystem. A few, I won't go through all of this because this alone is like a 1-hour session. So like some snapshots. So a very effective way, let's say you're targeting, I don't know, farming. You're targeting farming as an industry. Then a very effective way to infiltrate them is to write about them. So you're writing a report about the top 50 farming companies in the world. You also mention the top leaders. You post on your website and you post it on LinkedIn Pulse. Who do you think will read this article? It will be read by people in those companies, and in particular the decision makers you're mentioning, because you're mentioning a few sentences about each. They'll totally read that. And you can also send the draft article in an email saying, "Hi Stephen, so we've written about your company. We've also mentioned a few things about you and your colleagues. Could you please check if what we're writing is correct?" The response rate on that email is 95%. That is very hard to achieve with a traditional advertising email. So how do we make sure that we influence the right companies and people? Now we move into some of the vehicles that you need to use to take your great messaging that is based on the 5 cornerstones. You created the full funnel messaging, which is synchronized with all the functions, not just marketing, sales, product, customer success, finance, etc. So you have that. How do we make that into content? We're doing primarily videos. And then how do we amplify it using a few different media vehicles? I won't go through the full media machinery. I'll show you some of the snapshots. So the very simplistic recipe is to use IP targeted ads where you pinpoint the specific organizations. So when they go online, they'll see your videos and ads on a variety of media. And you do actively work with social media, not just a few people, but the bigger part of the team. There's a technique here which is super effective, which we call bee swarming, where you visit as a team, you visit the most important people simultaneously. So all of a sudden they see on the who's visited my profile, oh, 5 people from your company have been on their profile today. And that creates a lot of attention, etc. So quickly about the bee swarming technique, one key here is to do it as a team. And the whole thing is about figuring out who do I need to get the attention from. So you were visiting the LinkedIn profiles on a regular basis. We did this systematically at Kleinman. We recommend most companies to do this because especially when you do it as a team, it becomes very effective. All of a sudden you see, whoa, 5 people from this organization they're checking me out. Most people think that they've had a meeting about you, but that's not the case. So it's an attention grabber. We're not saying anything. We're just visiting their profile. And here a quick recommendation is to use your title field in LinkedIn, not just for your title, but also a short pitch. So someone who's just seeing you pop up on the radar and who's visited my profile, they should immediately see your photo, but they see your title, but most of all, they see your mini pitch, 1 sentence. So use the title field in LinkedIn for that. Most of the deals at Climb were originated from this tactic. So this is a way to get the first touch, but then you're using advertising content to really infiltrate these organizations. So here's an example from Iceland where we're just 2 of us visiting this person, Ingmar, on LinkedIn, and we did this a few times, and he after a while started to check us out, and as a coincidence, when he went into LinkedIn, checking Ruben out, it was immediately an article about Icelandic heat power production, which was what Kleinman is about. He then found Kleinman's webpage, and 3 months later, we made the first pilot for 30 million euros. We then extended that deal and made it bigger. So this and a lot of people are saying, what's the silver bullet, Christopher? It is actually no silver bullet. You can't, if you only do this, yeah, you do have some effect. But the cool thing is when you blend the whole factory thinking at once, then you're winning elections. A second important piece is to make not just the founder and someone else as the media attention grabbers. We need to take a much larger team and put them in the center. So take people, and not just from marketing and sales and leadership, but also product people, delivery people, etc., and put them in media, in videos, in ads, in articles, etc. So here's an example from Kleinman where these 2 guys were very promoted in videos and ads towards Maersk and other large shipping companies. I remember one situation where I followed that maritime sales team down to Copenhagen. So for those of you who don't know, Maersk is the largest shipping company in the world with 40,000 ships. So we went down to their headquarters, and since we had been exposed so much in media, thanks to this machinery, they were starstruck. So even though we met some really high titles, and we came as salespeople, they were like, "Oh, you have time to meet us," and you could feel that we weren't seen as salespeople. We had a leverage from being seen in media, and you probably felt if you come across a celebrity in town, you feel like a bit starstruck. You don't know where to look, etc. So you're shifting the power game a lot, and it was almost like cool to meet Kleinmon internally, thanks to this media machinery. So I'll show you some account-based marketing techniques. The first one is to target the IP numbers of, so at Kleinmon, for example, we went from taking away all the resellers. We made a first narrowing down into 97 companies, and then we shrunk it to 57, and we really pushed media to their IP numbers, making them see us in ads, in videos, etc., online, but also in social media, and these are some examples from us. And here the trick is to blend. We blend videos, we blend small messages, and we take the full funnel messaging and we put it in media so we can play different messages depending where we are in the funnel. So here are some example techniques. IP targeting I mentioned. We also do something that is really interesting. We target individuals using Instagram and Facebook. So both inside the accounts you want to target, but also in the ecosystem. It could be certain politicians, certain technical spokespersons, etc. We target them and drop your content to them over time. And some of the, if you implement this discipline, and you don't need to work with us, but you can study the book, you can consume all our content, and you will probably come at least pretty far. But the first effect is you become better at prioritizing not just segments, but also accounts based on best fit, key initiatives that we mentioned that also Ingmar commented on, but also certain disqualification criteria. It's really important. The best mega dealers are really good at disqualifying. So as soon as you feel that this has a lower likelihood of becoming a deal, you should exit actually. Second one is that you become better at positioning out, substituting competitors. We see this again and again. A lot of our customers, before putting in the messaging architecture, they were losing deals way above themselves, not against competitors, but against other initiatives. And by using a blend of content and targeting, you ensure a secure entry. So the accounts you want to win, you will speak to them. It's not like, shall we try to? No, you will speak to them. You will be in their living room after a few months. And you will have a broad entry with a broader range of people. And by looking at the full funnel, we can take away a lot of repetitive work. So we make actually the large deals way cheaper. That is the secret formula. You have a higher success ratio thanks to the front end, and you have a lower cost of sales thanks to actually automating certain parts. You still need the people on top of that, but you can take away a lot of these. I'm sure many of you are answering the same questions again and again and again. And I won't go. And then have various techniques to amplify the dialogues inside these accounts and ecosystems. So if and when you succeed with this, your company financials, we have many cases now where they many X their revenue, and it's better for your employees and family. A lot of these rainmakers are actually working their, sorry for the word, asses off. They're working really hard. So if we take them and put them in videos, we can amplify them better. So they have more bandwidth and don't need to work in evenings. And also, if you follow this discipline, we will ensure you that you are top class. We've looked at the best companies in the world doing large deals, and none of them are acing the full discipline. They're typically acing big parts of it. So that's why we also have as clients really large companies, because they know they have gaps. And if you embrace this discipline, you will be really in the front end, like the politicians. You really understand how to play this game, and your evenings and weekends will be more nice. So the success in Kleinmon was from $3 to $90 million in 2 years. We also managed to get some really interesting backers like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, Jack Ma, etc. And one of the key things was to make it a marketing driven as opposed to sales driven power plant sales. And we shrunk slightly at least, the total spend. So it looks very expensive, but as soon as you take away a few salaries on the sales side, that is releasing a lot of money. And we released one video and article per week, and we used this this media machinery that I quickly showed you. So the whole thing is to be able to run the commercial engine as a factory and not as an ad hoc thing. We're actually going to make a video where we have a third world country factory, which is all manual labor. It's a factory, but it's dusty and people are working with their hands. So you have a product coming out, and then you have this BMW shiny robotized factory with humans and robots interacting to finalize these high-tech cars. So yeah, just a quick view. This is the media tech machinery. It's relatively comprehensive, but once you have it in place, it's really effective. It's really effective. So what techniques are you using, which phase of the buying, and what content are you pushing? This is something we help out with. But you can also study it in the book and in our content. So shall we release some questions, some thoughts around what the strongest memory is, etc.? Are you coordinating, Maura? You can come in as well, Ingmar. You can also ask questions.
How you have been doing a lot of Megadeals. I have a question. How hard is it to do your own Megadeals about Megadeals? Because my experience is that in my previous career, I have so many entrepreneurs succeed in finance and have investors.
Right.
Now I'm a CEO of a company talking to investors that have done investing in my company. It's so hard. It's so difficult. Right. So are you experiencing the same thing?
Well,
before you answer that,
sure.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry. Before you answer that, so if everybody can hear me, if you want to ask questions, please do it in the chat.
Yeah.
And I will read the questions, and we will try and answer them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Type your questions in the chat, and Maura will read them to us.
Sorry, back to you, Christopher, please.
Yeah. So first of all, maybe not as that. We'll see if that is the answer you were asking for. So we do have companies that are using this discipline to raise funds. So they're using this machinery to target institutional investors and private investors, and to get them completely. So again, it's the same machinery.
No. That was not the question.
That was not the question.
The question is that it's one thing to give advice of how others should do it. Right. Another thing is to do it yourself.
Right.
So my experience is it's so much harder to do it yourself than giving the advice. So my question to you is, how is your experience of doing Megadeals for your company, Megadeals?
Right. So we're using this discipline ourselves. So if you follow us, you will notice, and when you start to engage in a meeting, you will see some of our potential existing clients are kind of laughing because they recognize the whole thing when they engage with us.
The follow-up question: Are you experienced that it's harder to do it for yourself than doing it for your clients, or is it easier?
No, it's even easier because we really want to live according to what we preach, and it's we're in a time where we're struggling to recruit, rather. We are really high in demand at the moment, and maybe it's good timing, maybe it's a good concept, maybe it's thanks to our own Megadeals discipline. I don't know, but we're really high in demand, and both from SaaS scale-up, sustainability scale, and we do also work with some of the biggest companies in the world. So as a kind of credibility platform, it's great to work with some of the biggest companies in the world because everyone knows that they're really demanding. I think the reason why they bring us in is that they're pretty good at many of these things, but they know they still have gaps. So even if you can only improve 15, 20%, that's immense. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So we have one question from Daniel. So when you skip distribution or partners, how do you deal with markets such as China, or in fact, any country which poses a language barrier?
Great question. So the thing is, when you're selling something, it's a very important point here. When you're coming to a point where you're already proven, I mean, substantially proven, you should engage with distributors and partners on the sales side. But until then, you need to do it on your own. You can have people helping you, but you need to do the sale, because no client is buying a semi-proven product through a third party. That won't happen. They want to look the founders in the eyes and say, okay, Ingmar, if I buy this from you, will you stand up for it? If we have, which we will have, if we will have shaky periods, will you be there? And that's a trust bond that no third party can induce. It's absolutely impossible. And you can try it, you will lose a lot of money. We've seen it, I mean, it was in my previous company where we invented account-based marketing, we worked with over 400 scale-ups, and it was almost a parody. Like I walked from meeting to meeting where all of them said, oh, we're struggling with partner sales. Christer, what can we do? Oh, we're struggling with partner sales. What can we do? I'm like, seriously, stop doing partner sales. It's too early. It's one thing when you have a super proven product and the demand is superseding what you can supply and what you can handle. That's a different story. But in the early market, you need to prove the case yourself. And again, you can have delivery partners that are enabling your deals with you, but you need to be the front wagon.
Cool. Next one. As a small, not yet fully funded startup, where would you put your focus? And then he's added some choices. So bee-swarming investors, simplified content, and then in a parentheses, even though it hurts as a professional marketer, targeted at a few specific potential customers or something else?
And that's basically asking for the silver bullet.
And there isn't one.
There isn't one. No, for real, and you know this, Bora, there isn't one. Yeah, I think if you want to do a really small thing, yeah, do the bee swarming. It's super simple. You can get started. But if you do that alone, it will not.
But wouldn't you say, Christopher, and maybe you want to talk a bit about this because I think you do it really well. If you're a small, not fully funded startup, wouldn't you put your focus first of all on the targeting, messaging, and positioning? So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So where do you want to start to hone in? And then once you've decided that, you know, what is the target area you're going for, the niche or the beachhead you want to win? Maybe you want to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I would focus entirely to your point, Bora. I would focus on figuring out which are the main target segments and countries we should go for, which are the accounts in those, and also connected to that, what is the fundamental messaging that also leads to what positioning you have. That's something you need to crack, regardless if you're working with Megadeals or not. You need to crack that. And what we see is a lot of companies, when they do that exercise, they realize, oh, we're going towards failure, because you're losing often deals to substitutes that are not on your radar. You're going, well, we compete with these and we're better than them because of this, this, and that. And the customer's going, but I don't care. I'm solving this problem in a different way. So most of the competition is on the category and on the subcategory level, and at most on the dimension level. What happens when you're selling a problem and then your solution is the customer can't see the difference. They just see a cloud of potential vendors, and you become price pressured and not even considered because they don't get it.
Exactly, because then you're going after the right beachhead and the right clients rather than going too broad and on the right clients. Yeah. Okay, good. Next one. At what size and development does Megadeals work / function during a business life cycle? From the very start to ... And what size development?
No, I mean, we would like to be engaged in the very start, but typically there's a catch-22. Those companies can't afford us, and they're not ready to scale. Our machinery is really effective when you have a proven case. You don't have to have 50 cases, but you need to have a few implementations where the customers are going,
I want to buy it, I'm paying for it.
Yeah, I paid for it, I'm happy about the results. You need to come beyond that point, because I mean, a lot of companies prior to that could use us, but the commercial model doesn't really match.
And also, what we do is we bring scaling steroids into the picture. If you do that with a product or a model that's not ready yet, you actually have a big problem.
Yeah.
You have to have that.
But we also work with large companies because they struggle with the fact that you saw earlier. There's a rainmaker dependency even there. There's just a few people that know how to do the large deals, so it's often sitting in the head of some smart people, and there's not a systematic approach. But our big passion is around especially sustainability scale-ups, because there we can have a good business and we can make a large impact for the world, connected to Ingmar's mission as well. How can we scale proven technologies?
Yeah, before I go to the next question, so Carl Oscar asked the question about a fully fully funded startup and where to begin. He's saying, awesome answer, thanks. Thanks, Carl Oscar, I appreciate that. So to the next one then. So from Sean Mack, how Megadeals apply
Hi, Sean.
their own tactics on the market? Well, easy to answer.
Yeah, we follow it.
They have exponential growth. That can only happen if they know what they're doing.
Yeah. No, we are growing crazy fast, despite, or I don't know if it's thanks to or despite COVID, but we were 2 people 6 months ago. Now we're 9, and we have a long recruitment list. We are also really following the recipe on the messaging. We're doing, as you can see now, we're doing the content. We're pretty good on the fundamental messaging and content. We're now doing a lot of content related to the deal closing. So we're not ready with our own journey. But despite having a half-ready factory for ourselves, we're really crushing it at the moment. Yeah, Ingmar.
So the reason why we partner up is that you're going to focus more on the sustainability piece.
Yeah.
And I love that because sustainability business needs to scale.
Yeah.
And it's so little knowledge in this field on how to do it.
Yeah.
But I have a question, and that is, how are you living yourself in the way? Is Megadeals sustainable? What is your own action in there?
We do most deliveries without traveling. We have clients in Asia, in North America, and various European clients. So we do a lot of delivery. I don't know.
But Christopher, maybe we should also talk. I think the big thing.
We're people business.
It's a really good question, but I think the big area, and Chris, you should talk about this. I think you do it really well. Is that based on where we're focusing at the moment is scale ups. That's our kind of niche.
Yeah.
But we're also really moving into sustainability scale ups, and maybe you want to talk a bit about why we've decided we've taken that kind of strategic decision and why we're standing here talking about.
Yeah, I mean, as a citizen,
I think that's the big one.
As a citizen, I'm totally convinced that we need to do something pretty fast. What scares me the most are the effects that come in when, for example, what's it called in English now? Permafrost.
The methane gas.
Yeah, when methane gas, etc., are released, so parts of the world that are constantly frozen are all of a sudden melting, and then that's releasing a lot of methane gas, and that's horrible. It's 20 times more damaging than CO2. I mean, that can be debated, everything from 50 to 40. I've seen a lot of numbers, but it's a substantial multiplier, and then you can kind of have a jump of 10 degrees, not just 1 degree. And I think we're running close to having those trigger effects. So we need to move fast. And I think our biggest contribution, which I will be able to proudly tell my grandkids, is that we came in as a commercial company, helping a long list of sustainability companies to really crush it and make the impact. Because we don't produce the sustainability product, but we can help sustainability products reach the market and then have an impact. Because there are so many cases, I almost get frustrated. There's so many cases where we say, well, we have this one implementation. When we're fully deployed, we will have this impact in the world. Yeah, when we're fully deployed. And if that takes 5 years longer because you're running around with partners and you're targeting too many segments and you're not getting the scaling in place, that will damage the world.
Yeah, that whole strategic decision for us to focus on that arena is, I think, a big contribution from our side as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. No, we have a lot of questions, and I think we're going to get through all of them. But what we will do is, if we haven't answered all of them, we'll do our best to answer you in a written format. So let's see if we can do 1 or 2 more. Is there really a difference between any business case and the sustainability business case? So is there a difference between any type of business case and a sustainability business case when it comes to making deals?
Yes. So first of all, it's very often an ecosystem you're selling into. Normal B2B businesses are mostly selling into client. Here we need to convince an ecosystem of actors to close the deal. That's number one. And that includes, for example, I mean, politicians. So there are other industries that have political influence, like infrastructure, hospitals, etc. But many sustainability cases are running into good and bad regulations. So we do need to have a component of political engagement. The contracts are pretty complex compared to many other. I mean, there are businesses that are like the sustainability categories, but the degree of complexity and the multitude of parties we need to convince is very, very complicated. So I had a meeting together with some of my colleagues this morning with a great energy storage company, and we said to them, well, the cool thing about you is that you tick all the boxes of the Megadeals discipline. When we work with a SaaS company or another company, they tick most of the boxes, but you can apply the whole thing because it covers the political aspects, the contracting, the financing, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of special purpose vehicles coming into play and all that.
Really, really good questions. Thank you. Let's do two more, and then I don't think we'll be able to do much more. I think we should, and then if there's other questions that we haven't answered, we'll do our best to try and respond. Offline.
Afterwards. Yeah, exactly.
So Ylva has a really, really interesting question. It makes me smile a little bit. How does marketing people react to their new role in this approach?
Well, so the thing is, when we typically have done a 4-day workshop session, there are some exceptional companies that go, okay, now we get it, and they implement and they do it and they succeed. A lot of companies are saying, okay, now we really understand what you're talking about. So we've understood most of it, we really understand, but we need help to get this working in reality. So often the sales side is a slight upgrade. So that can be done with a few skill development sessions. The marketing side is often re-engineered. So one of the things we have started to do more in the last few months, which is going really well, is something we call the factory. So instead of training the client, we say, okay, let's set up the marketing factory together, and we fill it with the right films, and we put the media machinery in place. We run it for you for a few months, and then we hand over the keys back to you. I think I actually show this in a picture very, very quickly early. So here you can see there are keys here. Those are symbols for handing back the keys to the factory back to the client. But instead of coaching the client, we come in and we do it, but in full transparency. So marketing needs to make a bigger leap than sales.
Yeah, let's take the last question, and then for the rest of you, apologies, we can't answer all the questions, but we will try and respond. Could you talk about open tenders versus bilateral negotiation for energy/renewable issues in terms of orchestration?
Not really. Just one comment. Like the cool thing with tenders or RFP processes is that they typically stipulate that you're not allowed to talk to the client. But I've seen the only exclusion I've seen from other influence is emails. So you're not allowed to send emails. Sometimes emails are included, but indirect media, like most of the tactics we're talking about, cannot be named as targeting a specific person. So you can use this air support, and you're still compliant with the RFP process. So you can do the influence, but you should obviously start way earlier. But even during the tender or the RFP process, you can do the influence process with most of the components we're talking about. I don't know if that was a good answer, but
we actually have two more. Shall we get through them as well?
Yeah, shoot.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for staying on. We do have two more. We'll see if we can just get through them. For those of you that are on, appreciate it.
Just a comment. I mean, this is an important comment. So studying the largest deals in the world, applying it on sustainability cases, and we've practiced on a few already. We will never, even if we call ourselves Megadeals, we will never be able to give the full answer, because this topic is so complex that it's more like we're getting slightly better glasses than most, because we've looked at so many of these and we work with so many of these. But no one will ever in the history of the world be able to crack how Megadeals are done. So we are not sitting on all the answers, and we are not always right.
How is Megadeals helping startups implement sustainable development strategies in their business plan?
We don't at the moment.
But that's where we're moving to.
Well, right? we don't. The thing is, here's an important. So depends on how you define a startup. We are not working with unproven cases. So we totally make a difference once you have the first. I mean, we do make a difference early, but it's a mismatch of the commercial model and the value. So typically it doesn't end up very well. So we come in when you have one or a few proven cases and you really want to now industrialize and scale. And you know that some of your individuals will be bottlenecks very, very fast, and you will struggle to get the right attention. I mean, going back to this fortress, you'll send in a lone warrior inside the portal, and that war will be completely hammered. Or another analogy, you'll drop the ice hockey puck in the attacking zone with only one attacker, and you stay with 4 players in your own zone. That attacker will not score.
What is a Megadeal budget for a startup with reference customers to scale up the going to market?
Right.
Reference customers, I assume is saying.
So what do you pay us? Or
What is the Megadeal budget for a startup with reference is it customs or customers? I assume,
customers, yeah.
to scale up the go to market. Oh, okay.
Right.
So I think that what they're asking is, if I'm a startup,
Mm.
what should I allocate to my Megadeal strategy? This is how I'm interpreting
Right.
this.
So when
To
we
go
come
to
in,
market.
let's be transparent. So when we come in and do the 4 half days, you get prep material, you get 4 half days, we get homework in between, and we have a review session afterwards. That's a 20,000 euro engagement.
Exactly. But if you
Yeah.
really want to establish that, it's more the factory approach
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we're talking about. It's too complicated to share here.
Yeah, no,
But
let's
if you're
talk about that
interested to
offline.
listen,
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
can contact
And
us. and we'll talk about it.
it's relatively standardized, but it's still there are a few variables that are driving costs. So it's still the end price there is.
The last question is a monster question. I don't think we'll get through it here today, but we have touched upon it. It's, can you or anybody please share Megadeals' vision, agenda, and action plan for climate action 2030? Please email it to me.
Right.
I think
Our
that's
big contribution is that we are really good at scaling complex businesses.
Yeah.
So by moving most of our attention to sustainability, that's our easiest
Exactly.
contribution.
And maybe also add that isn't it about to focus on 2030?
Yeah.
Focus on what we can do today.
Now.
And we can't wait for an innovation that
No.
is maybe going
No.
to happen or is in the research field. Of course, we need to develop that as
Mm.
well. But
Yeah.
here and now, we need to scale what we have.
Right.
We
Exactly.
need to work with what I have. And what we have seen in the world last year is the biggest mega deal ever
Yeah.
adapting to the corona situation.
Yeah.
And the world has actually done that incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows how to do this international events now.
Yeah.
Before corona, I think We Don't Have Time was one of few organizations that actually hosted those digital
Right,
global
exactly.
events. Now everyone is doing it. And that is really, really a scale enabler.
Right. Exactly. Agree.
I
Can
think
I
we're
just,
fine there, so I'll let you guys just finish off. Thank
Yeah.
you everyone for asking questions.
Thank you all for participating. It was a pleasure. I hope you liked it. I hope you have some insights that you can bring into your organization. And thank you, Ingmar, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Can I just wrap this up really quick? That if there are any sustainability scale-ups here and you already have a proven product and that you're ready to scale and you're like a greyhound ready to leap, you can please reach out to me and we'll see if you can fit into this report that we're doing about the top
Right, exactly.
sustainability companies. I'll be really
You
grateful.
find Elin on LinkedIn
Yes.
or elin@megadeals.com.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you everyone for participating today. Bye.